Hello dear chess friends. Today I would like to teach you one very important strategy concept. But before I do so, please pause the video and think what would you play in this position if you were given the black pieces. And so the concept is known as a good knight versus bad bishop. In this position, black can give up their good and kind of active bishop, especially if it would land on d6, for the opponent's knight on b4 by capturing it, and white would recapture back. Why would black do that? Well, he wants to enter a risk-free position where black's knight will dominate white's bishop. Let's take a look at the knight on the c4 square. It's on a protected outpost where it cannot be threatened by white's pawns or the bishop. It's very active and controls a lot of squares in the opponent's camp. It could also be maneuvered to many other good squares like f5, e4, and b5. The position is also currently closed, so that favors the knight as well. On the other hand, let's take a look at white's bishop. It is bad according to white's pawn structure. Most of them are on the dark squares, and so the bishop doesn't help covering the weak light squares. It's also passive, not controlling a lot of squares, and it's hard to see bishop getting good in this position. So these are the reasons why black exchanged their good bishop for that knight, to enter this position where knight of blacks is completely dominating their rival, the bishop, on e1. Let's follow a grandmaster game to see how would black try to win this and convert this winning advantage into a full point. Averbach was playing black here, and Najdorf was playing white. Black will continue to improve their position until white will collapse. So black starts with the move knight to a3. It's a multi-purpose move. First of all, we're opening up the file and our rook can now invade the second rank. Also, the knight could remaneuver itself to the b5 square, where it will aim at the d4 pawn. So in this position, white played rook to b3, knight goes to b5 and attacks the pawn, and here white played e3, a very committing move, which was provoked by black. Dark squares are not the squares that white wants to put the pawns on, because their bishop is only getting worse. So this is a small victory in terms of strategy for black already. So here, black played rook to c2 and invade the second rank. When we control the file with the rook, we always try to invade the second and the first ranks, because most of the time that's where we can create threats. In this case, we're attacking the a2 pawn. In this position, white played a4. We have to retreat with the knight, and now white plays a5. Here I would like you to pause the video and ask yourself, what would you play if you were given the black pieces here? So b takes a5 would be not in the spirit of the knight versus bad bishop, because then the bishop of white would be a little bit more opened, plus we're opening up the file where white has the rook. So this move would only be to white's favor. We also don't want to leave the pawns as they are, because then white will be able to capture. So we prefer just closing it, and we cement that with b5. Rook to c3 was played by white, and here I have another exercise for you. What would you play if you were given the black pieces here? There are two main moves here, I believe. One is a little bit weaker, which is rook takes c3. Now in this case, after rook takes, bishop takes, it seems like black could be winning the file. However, we can play rook c1, and after the bishop will get attacked a second time, for example by the knight to e4. They can always play bishop to b2. So in this case, we remain with the good knight versus bad bishop. However, what we could have done instead is consult our last piece, the rook on a8, and place it on the c8 square. This time the rook is hanging, so they must take, and in this position we not only have a better knight versus bad bishop, but we also have better rook than the opponent. Our rook is active on the second rank and could be creating threats. In this position, white played f3, putting some pawns on the light squares, knight to e7, bishop to f2, king to f7. Black is continuously improving his position without weakening it. Rook to b1, knight to f5. Here knight starts aiming at the g3 and e3 pawns, which are the weaknesses right very now because they're not guarded by opponent's pawns. King f1, knight d6, knight is remaneuvered to the c4 square, rook to b3, knight to c4, and immense pressure that black is applying on the white's position. King to g2, and now f5, finally putting more pawns on the light squares just to make sure that it's harder to put the pawns on the light squares for white. And here already black has many threats and very hard for white to be making a move. In the game, white played rook b1, and now you can pause the video and perhaps you can find a small tactic for black. And so the move that black played was knight to e3, and white's bishop cannot be taking the knight due to the rook pinning the bishop, and black is already a pawn up and still strategically winning position. However, we cannot blame white for blundering rook b1, as it is really hard to be making any kind of move in this position for white. Seems like everything would weaken something and black would take advantage of it. I hope you enjoyed today's lesson. Please consider hiring me as your personal chess coach online. My contacts are on the right. That's my currently full-time job, and otherwise, please subscribe to my channel. I hope to see you in my next videos. Stay safe, stay healthy, and continue loving the game.